Minds podcast, your home for bold conversations grounded in faith and fueled by a passion for truth. I'm fired up today because we're continuing something truly special, our Know Your Candidate series, where we're sitting down with the men and women who want to represent you and lead our communities here in California. Let me tell you something straight from the heart. California, our beautiful golden state, is worth fighting for. It's worth saving. Packing up and leaving? That's not who we are. We're a people of resilience, of hope, and of unwavering faith, and we're not giving up on this place we call home. Here at Latino Free Minds, we're rooted in our Christian values: faith, hope, and charity. These aren't just words to us. They're the guiding light for how we live, how we love, and how we lead. Over the next year, we're bringing you face to face with candidates who want to shape California's future. Our mission? To dig deep, ask the tough questions, and give you the clarity you need to make the best choice for your family, your community, and your faith. This isn't about politics as usual. It's about finding leaders who share our values, who see California not just as a state, but as a home filled with families, dreams, and God-given potential. We believe that when you listen to these conversations, you'll be empowered to vote with your heart and your conscience, grounded in the principles that matter most: faith in God, hope for a better tomorrow, and charity towards one another. California's future is in our hands, and together we can choose a path that honors our families, strengthens our communities, and reflects the love and truth we hold dear. So grab a seat, open your heart, and join us for these powerful Know Your Candidate episodes. Let's shine a light, lift our voices, and show the world that California is worth fighting for. Stay with us. This is going to be a journey you don't want to miss.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Latino Free Minds. Today is a special episode. I am joined today with Carina from the RNHA and Vincent from the Jefferson Club. And I appreciate both of you coming on today because we have a special guest today, somebody that we will be interviewing, somebody that has been part of California for a good long time. And recently she made a switch from the Democrat side to the Republican side. And that's not by coincidence. There's a lot behind the reason she switched, and she's got a lot of good history. I think very bipartisan relationship with people like Arnold Schwarzenegger and other folks. So without further ado, I welcome to the show Gloria Romero. Gloria Romero, you are running for California Lieutenant Governor. I'm very excited to have you here today on the show. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for the invitation to be with you today.
Of course. I'm glad that you reached out and your team reached out. I know that you are coming to Fresno very soon. That's going to be Sunday and Monday coming up soon. So what do you have going on here in Fresno?
Well, I've been to Fresno many times, of course, but this weekend we're going to be back. Monday night, we're doing a special event. It's going to be at the Club One Casino in Fresno. And the special hosts are Steve Hilton, candidate for governor, who is my running mate on the golden ticket, as well as the indomitable comedian, entertainer, Paul Rodriguez. So it will be a lot of fun. Again, one of the best websites, I think, is to take a look at the Babylon Bee. You got to look sometimes at politics and just laugh at what you see. And it will be a fun night. So we ask people to come out, join us, support my candidacy, support the campaign, and have a good time in the process.
Well, I'm excited. I'm trying to clear some space to go because I want to be there. I'm a huge fan of Paul Rodriguez. I grew up watching his movies. Mm-hmm. So when I heard he was coming, I was like, he's going to be right down the street. I got to go. So very excited that you guys are coming to town, and the fact that Steve, you will be here. That's going to be awesome. Let's get started. I want to allow Carina to go first because she comes with the experience of a Hispanic, the Republican Hispanic group. So, Carina.
Well, thank you very much, Gio. I'm truly honored to be here in the presence of Gloria Romero, who represents a lot of us Latinos here in California and has the same sentiment that many of us have, especially those that are involved politically. And in that case, I kind of wanted to gear one of my conversations I have a lot when I'm talking about you and sharing what you're running for. A lot of people don't know what the lieutenant governor is or what is their role in California. Can you go over what that role is and then and why you chose that path?
Right. Lieutenant governor is often, I think, just a misunderstood position. Most people have no idea what is the lieutenant governor, who is the current lieutenant governor. And I take a look at this position and I think it is suited ideally for me. Number one, most people who run for lieutenant governor are basically running because they're hoping to fail up in the future, to become governor one day. It's sort of a parking spot for otherwise, I think, failed politicians and failed candidates. If they want to run for governor, they should have declared running for governor right from the get-go. I am running specifically for lieutenant governor for a number of reasons. Number one, the lieutenant governor is the president of the California State Senate. I was the majority leader. When I served in the California State Legislature, I was elected, the first woman, the first mujer, the first Latina to ever be elected to this leadership post in California. And to be the president of the Senate is very important because this is where all the nominations that a governor makes, hopefully it will be Steve Hilton, they go through the California State Senate. So as the president of the Senate, as I tell people, I know where the bodies are buried. I know how to use the rules of the game. It's like poker. You got to have a hand of cards. How's it dealt? I know how to move those cards forward. And that's important because you want to get your nominations confirmed so that we can have the cabinet that we have chosen, we've selected, and that the voters have sent us there for. Day one, I would sit down with all 40 California senators, Republican, Democrat, because once we are elected, it's no longer about campaigning, it's about governing. And you get to work quickly. So I would sit down with all 40 senators and basically begin to talk about, okay, let's move forward. This is the agenda. These are the folks. Let's get these peoples into their confirmed positions. So that's very important. Also, additionally, I work very closely with the governor in calling the extraordinary sessions of the legislature, just not an ordinary session, but I want to focus right away on a bloated budget and how do we reduce that, and a second extraordinary session that the governor can call, and that is one where we would look specifically at waste, fraud, and abuse. So those are two very important, entities that deal with the economy of the state that I would work on right away. A second major issue, and this is really my passion, and this is why I believe the people of California saw what I brought to the table and why I was, why I beat 15 other candidates in this race. And I think it was, across the board, people recognized the talent, the spirit, the drive, the leadership. And that is that the lieutenant governor serves on every board of higher education in California. The University of California as a regent, the California State University system as a trustee, the community colleges as a governor for the board of governors of all community colleges in California. And most importantly, it's that almost half the entire state budget goes to education in California. And yet we're failing. Mm-hmm. And we've been failing for decades. Just recently, the University of California at San Diego, they put out a report that showed that incoming freshmen to the university, and these are prestigious universities recognized throughout the world, but the university, over 1,200 faculty signed on to a letter based upon the report from UC San Diego that showed that incoming freshmen would get into the university, but they had to be put into remedial classes. This is absolutely shocking. It's unheard of. And so it makes, it does no good to go through all the motions, to just simply be passed along, then to graduate and to find yourself without reading or computational math skills. It does nobody any good. The student who's graduating, the employer, if the person's going directly into the workforce, who's seeking to hire, or going into the university where the professors will say, hey, wait a minute, these kids aren't at college level. So that's very important. And what I will do is speak very strongly on this education crisis, lead on it. And I'm also going to form a TK through 16 education pipeline, because I am going to not just stop at college admissions. I'm going to reach down and basically take a look at the entire system. You know, much of the problem that I've noted for years now is that our K through 12 education system is failing our students, and we just pass along in order to shuffle the kids forward. It's not lost on me that almost half of our California students are not reading or doing math at the basic levels of proficiency needed in order to succeed. And the numbers get particularly worse when you take a look at Latino children. And that's why when I was in the legislature, I worked diligently to push for parent rights, for school choice, to fight for, I wrote the landmark parent trigger law that really set off, I think, a massive movement for parent rights in the nation. My mother had a 6th grade level of education. That's why I feel so passionate about it, because I have a PhD and chaired education committee. So these are very important things that I will have a direct role on. The other thing as well, and there are many, I would serve on the Coastal Commission, the Land Commission. These are very important. I also would serve in writing the economic plan for the state of California. And we cannot have a strong, vibrant economy if we don't have an educated workforce. So, I'm a businesswoman, I'm an educator, I am uniting, working with small businesses. If we take a look at the Central Valley, it's about agriculture, particularly as well. Import, export. We're seeing the lettuce crisis right now. There goes Taco Hell. Once again, blame it on them, right? But it's a serious issue because all of a sudden, a major product now is impacted throughout California. And, California's agricultural sector, it's the breadbasket to the world. We don't eat, we don't feed ourselves, we don't feed the nation if we don't have a vibrant, strong agricultural center in the Central Valley. So there's a lot that we do. A lot of people think you just wait to see the governor alive today. And that's sort of the joke about the lieutenant governor. It's so much more. But in the event, God forbid, should somebody, the governor, fail in their health, I would become the governor. You've got to be ready. You step up, you're ready to go. I am tried, I am tested, I am ready. And so, God forbid, should that happen, I would be ready to step in and become governor. But last time I looked, Steve Hilton is in great shape. So I'm not going to worry about that.
Well, thank you so much. You did fill in a lot of the gaps that we, a lot of people have questions about. So, and I'm part of the Salad Bowl of the World. Taylor Farms is right here, and that's who it's been named after. So,
exactly.
So that was a great explanation. So I think Vincent has a question for you as well.
My big thing is literacy, being a professor and whatnot. So I wanted to ask if you would support repealing AB 705, which passed in 2017. And this allows students to enroll in any course without demonstrated proficiency, which at the community college level has hurt us substantially. And I don't know how legally the UCs can prevent students from enrolling in other classes due to AB 705. What would be your position on that? And would you aggressively go against that or maybe repeal it? I'm curious to know.
Okay, I wasn't in the legislature in 2017, so again, I'd have to look at the bill. But overall, I believe in meritocracy. I believe you've got to be ready to go. Just this week, I spoke before the UC Regents of California because there is a proposal to examine why students are entering into the university and basically going into remedial classes immediately. And I am calling for the reinstitution of standardized metrics as a part, not the complete part, but a part of the college admissions process. It's a very controversial issue, but finally, 1,200 UC faculty signed together and said, we're petitioning the University of California, because what's happening then is students are coming in and they can't do the work. The professors have to basically dumb down the curriculum and basically eliminate it. So it's just causing this whole ripple effect. So to your specific question, I would want to look at it, but it seems rather bizarre that it would have, been enacted into law. I do believe that we've got to have expectations. Look, I reject the soft bigotry of low expectations. I represented East LA. You know which school was in my district? Garfield, the Bulldogs of Garfield. That was Jaime Escalante. That was, remember, Stand and Deliver. And that's really the type of professor that I am. If you believe and you have high expectations for students, they will get the job done. We've got to provide the resources. We have to have the trained teachers as well. We've got to have the good curriculum. My God, we have to have phonics in our system again to basically teach education and how to read so that students can learn to read and then they read to learn. But I do not believe, and when I was a professor, and today I'm recognized as Professor Emeritus at Cal State LA, which is my home community, my home base, I think that when we have low expectations for students, it's just nothing short of bigotry, and I reject that adamantly. Every kid can learn, every kid can excel, but we've got to provide the conditions. And when we see year after year, decade after decade, generation after generation, California, because we keep a list of basically underperforming schools, I call them failing schools, something is terribly wrong. And that's why I wrote a lot of school choice laws. Basically, no family should be trapped in a school that's designated as failing year after year, and then just saying, too bad kids, you got to stay there. We have to break those chains.
Gloria, on that bill, you authored the parent trigger law, giving parents real power over failing schools, not just a voice, but the ability to force change. You got pushback from your own party and the teachers union, but your colleges respected you anyway. Fast forward, there's been a real shift in what parental rights means in California politics. How do you see the parent trigger fitting into a broader parental rights agenda as Lieutenant Governor?
Fully supportive of parent rights. These are our children. I'm a mother. I'm not a birthing person. Another reason why I walked away from the Democrat Party, or as Ronald Reagan once said, I didn't leave the party left me. I believe that, boys should not be in girls' sports. Boys do not need tampons in their bathrooms. That is utterly ridiculous. Men do not get pregnant. I could go on and on and on. And yet we have found in our school system today that it's legal. It's actually legal to hide the information about our students and our children from the parents. And of course, too, there was been some recent victories on this, but parents have had to litigate over it. That is just unbelievable to me. These are our children. These are our schools. We are the taxpayers of these schools. And so information should never be withheld from parents. Parents are the first teachers. Like I said, my mother had a 6th grade level of education. She didn't understand all the work that I was doing, but she was always there for parent-teacher conference. She made a room at the kitchen table. We didn't have offices or our own desks or anything like that. We had a kitchen table. While she was cooking dinner, the kids would be there. She'd make room on the table and sit down, do your homework. Didn't understand it, but I appreciate it. I understood that, she was a good mother to all of us. There were 6 kids, and just oversaw to make sure that, because she understood that education is the key to the American dream. It's what makes us equal. It lifts us out of poverty. And that was the lesson I learned. And that's why fighting for education and quality education is important. And I hold kids and parents responsible, expecting them to work. But by the same token, we've got to hold our schools accountable and the educators who lead them as well.
Gloria, now, you mentioned something about us, like you. I walked away from a party that no longer represented who we are as collectively as a whole. But we walk into a party that is starting to get to know us and familiarize with us and understand us and be part of the culture that we carry. What do you think that the Republican Party, needs to improve on as far as authentically connecting with the Latino community?
I think that is an excellent question. And I will tell you, when I ran for lieutenant governor, even amongst Republicans, and I ran against, I think there were 4 other Republican candidates who ran against me. All of them, I defeated all of them. They would question me, like, oh, she was a Democrat once upon a time. I look at that and I think, yeah, and so was Ronald Reagan, and so was Donald Trump, and so was Tulsi Gabbard, and so was Leo Terrell, and so was Bobby Kennedy Jr. And, it goes on and on and on. And now we have 2 more in this room, right? I think it's important because, the way I look at it is, there are more registered Latinos in California. Check this out. There are more registered Latinos in California than there are registered Republicans in California. Over 2 million more Latinos. I mean, that is amazing. And then when we think about it, and what Ronald Reagan had once said, that Hispanics are really Republicans, they just don't really know it yet. And I think, on these issues where we look at, especially today, when we've seen how far the Democrat Party has gone from the roots of like a Kennedy Democrat Party, of which I was a part. American exceptionalism. My generation was basically, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And I fundamentally believe that. So, and I think Latinos are very much embody that skill of Americanism, of patriotism, of believing that you pay it forward to the future as well for our children. We are strong defenders of our family, whether it's our parents, or our children in the schools. We're very strong defenders of faith and wanting to have, to fight back when you have an authoritarian governor and an authoritarian Democrat Party telling us you can't go to church, but you can go to the casinos in the evening during COVID. Freedom is very essential for all of us. So I look at this and I think, what, if the Republican Party wants to continue as a minority party out of power, then it can stay with basically, sort of walls around it. But the way to grow is to recognize the growing community of people who really are, I believe, inherent to the values. And we're not the only ones as well. I look at the Iranian community today, because the Iranian community, the number one community outside of Iran where the Iranians are, is here in Los Angeles. And it's a fight for freedom. And I fundamentally support that fight. I find the Iranian women some of the most, dare I say, kick-ass, the strongest, most tenacious women that are teaching the so-called feminists of the West what it really means to stand up for freedom, to just be audacious in that. So I think that there's a need to understand that, to embrace us, to accept us, not to question us about it. And I think that we will be the strength of, the future of the Republican Party as we grow. We already saw in the last presidential election that it's estimated anywhere from 35 to maybe 40% of Latinos, even if they stayed as Democrats, crossed over to vote Republican. And I believe that this year we're going to see, and I think we saw it in the primary, I think we're going to see it in the general as well, a surge of Latino voters. And my role is to reach out to all voters overall, all voters. But particularly, I'm reaching out to Latino voters to urge them to say, take a look at the values. What are we representing to you from low taxation, affordability, getting rid of the restrictions, school choice. And the big one for me that I've campaigned on up and down the state of California is stopping these, in the name of climate change, these regulators, bureaucrats from trying to ban gas stoves, because I tell people as a Latina, you know what, you cannot toast a tortilla in a microwave or on an electric range. You need the gas. And they're trying to take away and ban the gas stoves in the name of, allegedly climate change. So there's so much of a nanny state. They took away the plastic bags, the plastic straws. Now they're coming for the the gas stoves. We have to just say stop. And so, in that sense, I think it's very important because otherwise, if we do not lead the way on this, we are going to lose the California dream forever. So, this is a very important election. Latinos will be part of it. You know, when I had a chance to meet President Trump. And when I met him, he didn't take out a checklist. It wasn't like a 15 point, how do you feel on this? How do you check on this? You know what he did is he stood there and he knew my story and he just said, welcome to the Republican Party. And I think that's what it's got to be. You know, somos familia, you know, somos Americanos. We're a base of this, of California. We're 1 out of 3 voters in California today.
Right.
And I think the party that figures it out, and the Democrats, I think, for too long took Latinos for granted, just expected that we would keep the D and keep voting for Dumb and Dumber every election. And more Latinos are saying we have a choice and are listening to the debates, and we're getting some good quality candidates. Well, we get some bad ones too, but we're getting some good quality candidates to listen to lay out the agenda, and then to fight for the hearts and minds of the Latino community. Because nobody should ever vote on the basis of skin color or ethnic origin. Of course not. But I think when you take a look and you start looking at the platforms that are there and what the Republican Party represents, with Latinos increasingly becoming key in leadership roles, I think that we can shock the nation, and we have a chance to do that this November.
Gloria, you're known for working effectively. You were known for working effectively with Governor Schwarzenegger on things like prison reform and education legislation. You know, because you were a Democrat over 10 years ago. I mean, things have just changed so much. I'm going a little bit off script here because you got me thinking about some things. And I think back to like Proposition 36, the 3 strikes law. But then a couple years later, the Democrats introduced Proposition 47. You know, since you have left the Sacramento, the Democrats have gone further and further and further left. It's like a competition to see who can do worse than who. And I don't know if it's Scott Wiener winning the race right now, but when is it, or when was it, that triggered the Democrats into going into this like rat race of super progressive, pushing this weird, I don't want to say agenda. It's more like agendas, because they're going in so many different directions with, you know, the parental rights, the things that they're allowing at schools, shutting down more, like they want to shut down more prisons in California. What is it that set this off with Democrats in California?
You know, it's been a long time coming. You know, once upon a time, we all sort of remember Bernie Sanders. And, you know, kind of like the Einstein looking, you know, the hair and the whole bit. And, you know, we can't have any more millionaires and all that stuff. But Bernie Sanders has suddenly just sort of morphed into a whole lot of far left socialists. So we have seen it coming. I think the mainstream Democrat Party has failed to do anything about it, to stand up, to have the courage to push back. A lot of them are just afraid of taking them on. But I think we've seen it starting, especially in Congress. In fact, it's kind of interesting. I kind of credit or blame, depending on you look at it, another Latina, Puerto Riqueña, no, AOC, who was first elected. She took down an incumbent. And I think sort of the message there was that oftentimes you have incumbents in a party who don't pay attention to the people, and sort of you got to be very careful about that. So you don't just get the party insiders and those who are used to just basically running the party. You got to listen to the people and respond. But I think that was one of the shifts. Nancy Pelosi was the speaker at the time, and really she didn't do anything. Remember, we had the squad, and they went from there. Well, today you've got beyond a squad; it's a whole army. And here in Los Angeles, where I live, it's you know, the city council is largely comprised of socialists on the council.
I do want to jump in though, because it almost seems like when you compare California Democrats to Democrats on the national stage, Yeah, the Democrats on the national stage scare me, like AOC. Even Pelosi, she's from California, but then I look at inside California politics and I think of like the bills that are coming from Bonta and Wiener, and I'm like, United States, the Union, get ready if Wiener wins because you don't know what's coming for you. We already see it here in California. Like,
And
what?
where we especially see it is human sex trafficking. Los Angeles is ground zero. It's the epicenter of a human sex trafficking network, the largest in the state. It's known as the Figueroa Corridor, and I don't live too far from the Figueroa Corridor. And the really sad thing is you look at this, and of course, we've got proximity to the Mexican border. It's 2 hours, a drive from San Diego. When I think about trade, because the lieutenant governor would, and let me just digress a little bit, but the lieutenant governor would oversee a lot of international trade as well, import, export, trade delegations. Mexico's our strongest partner. When I think of the Central Valley and when I think about Latinos, it's not just, we always think immigration, but it's commerce. It's again to trade, education, so much. But one thing that we find is that human slavery should not be part of that trade. Human cargo should not be part of that trade. And if you come with me on any given day, 7 days a week, morning, noon, evening, weekends are especially horrendous, you're going to find especially young girls. You'll find boys as well, young men, but it's especially the trade is very vibrant with young females. And they're basically, they're prostituting themselves. They're selling themselves in order to survive. And I suspect that some of these may well be, we want to track this down, some of those 400,000 kids, migrant kids that remember Secretary Becerra at the time. Joe Biden called him Baccaria, but he was the Secretary Becerra, said he lost. Like, how do you lose 400,000 migrant kids? When you quote unquote lose kids, where did they go? Onto the streets. And they're sold as human cargo. And then to go back to your question, to tie it all together, well, guess who wrote a bill that made it especially difficult for the local police to even intervene? That was Scott Wiener, who basically, essentially, and I'm paraphrasing now, you can look at the fine print, but basically, cops can pull up and they can see a visibly young underage girl, we think sometimes 10 years old, 11 years old, and the cops cannot go to intervene to basically block that transaction, that selling of her little body for sex because of a bill that was written by Wiener and signed into law by Governor Newsom after it was voted overwhelmingly by Democrats in the legislature. It is mind-boggling. So you're right. All of this goes together, and it makes it very difficult to look at this. You come to downtown LA, Skid Row. Steve Hilton and I went to Skid Row just recently. I mean, it's a place of just human misery, and it's exacerbated by the rise of fentanyl and the drugs and even dog. We went there actually. I'm a massive dog lover. I believe in dog rescue and helping others to rescue, foster, and adopt rather than buy whenever possible. And so we find even the selling of dogs and the breeding of them over and over, which is so bad for their health as well, in order to sell them, give them away basically for drugs and sex. So it's all a racket together, but you're critically right. When we take a look at these laws that they write, they're not just abstract, they're not just loco, but they really perpetuate that cycle of human slavery in the modern era. And our young daughters and girls are there at right there, Figueroa, downtown Los Angeles.
Yeah, I guess one of the big problems is they have the supermajority, right? And they just passed AB 181, pushing the superintendent of public instruction into higher education governance, which was more of a lieutenant governor field, right? So do you believe California should move toward a more unified education governance system? And what role would the lieutenant governor play in that discussion?
Well, And again, I haven't studied that particular bill, but I start out by saying education governance in California makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. It needs a thorough overhaul. And so it is one where, if I can just paint a picture, you've got a superintendent of public instruction. Mind you, that position is basically the spokesperson for the teachers union. That's when you go back and you take a look at how it was originally created, that's what it is. Then many governors will choose to have a secretary of education. Some do, some don't. I don't think Gavin Newsom has one today. The lieutenant governor serves on the board of the colleges and universities. Then you've got 1,000 school districts in California. Each one has their own boards. You've got 10,000 schools approximately. You've got what I call the Great School Board in the Sky. It's the state board of education appointed by the governor, and confirmed by the California State Senate. So it is a mess, and it needs a massive overhaul. So I'm not going to protect any of those positions. I think that a pox on all their houses. Every commission that has studied education governance in California, including when I was in the legislature before 2010, has walked away saying you need to basically rewrite it, rethink it. So, as Lieutenant Governor of California, I want to create the TK through 16, pipeline, the council look at this. And one of them would be to take on perhaps again the challenge of looking at how do we redo, it's hard to say, an education governance system, because every bipartisan independent commission is saying it doesn't work. And when you look at the results, the numbers speak for themselves. Over half the kids in California are not reading or doing math at the basic level of proficiency. And then the universities are now dealing with the issue. So, you know what? It needs an overhaul overall. I'd look forward to working on that as lieutenant governor.
So I guess one real quick thing, decentralization or centralization? It seems more you're on the decentralization side of things.
Not necessarily. I think it just means, looking at common sense. When we think about it, I believe in having a strong governor. I believe in having a strong governor that is able to and should be held accountable and responsible for a state education system. If you think about it, for example, we've got a prison system, we've got a healthcare system, a transportation system, a water system. You don't see superintendents of all these agencies running separately as an independent office. So there is sense in looking at centralization to figure out, okay, what are the lines of authority that go forth? How do you have, the more lines you have, the less responsibility is ever taken, because you can always just point the finger. Somebody else did that. If you think about what they're doing at the federal level, for example, and this caused a brouhaha, I actually supported it. The President Trump, the Secretary of Education, McMahon, recommended, and it is going through, abolition of the federal Department of Education. That means eventually there won't be perhaps a Secretary of Education. And a lot of people are saying, oh my God, they're shutting down education. No, they're not. They're shutting down bureaucracy. I've seen so much of what is done under the federal auspices in education. They don't teach a single kid. They don't offer a single class. It's all about what they call compliance, bookkeeping, reporting. And what I think the brilliance of that action to basically devolve it and send it back to the states is to basically say, look, states, you are responsible for your education system. You are responsible for figuring out where the money goes that comes from the federal grants, but you at the state level need to implement that. And in that way, I guarantee you will stop hearing about, oh, it's the bad people in Washington, D.C. who won't do it. No, it's your job. You do it. So I support what's happening at the federal level. And I think in California, we can take a look at it and think about how do we do something there. The more that you strip middle management, the more that you can doge California, basically, I think you get cleaner, sharper lines, and you get money into the classroom where it belongs. You don't need all these talking heads on education. And so the more that we can kind of like, mainline it into the classrooms and then give the parents the power such that if they decide to walk away to a different school or homeschool or charter school, that money, I believe, should go with the kid into the school of their choice. And that's why, I am a firm believer in school choice. So there's a lot that we can do on education governance. It was the wheelhouse that I worked on when I was there. And after I left the legislature, I continued working with parents and helping schools and others. But I've always believed, and every report basically says education governance is a mess, but nobody has the courage to really take it on and tackle it. I do.
So Gloria, being that you're in public office, and being in public office requires a lot of sacrifice of yourself, but what keeps you motivated to continue decades in public service?
It's funny you ask that because I consider myself a public servant, not a politician. I've always believed that. I never thought I would be elected to office. I grew up on a dead end of a road in the middle of the desert in Barstow, California. I never thought I'd be in office one day. But I do believe in, that you remember the adage of my generation is ask what we can do for our country. And I take that to heart. And I talk to young kids today about that. Public service is noble. You get some really corrupt people that make it really bad. You get all the scandals and you get the stealing and the corruption and the grifting and invisible non-government agencies. Thank God for Nick Shirley, who they've made illegal in Sacramento as well, unbelievably so. But I think for me, it really is that belief that, California is a great state. And that, as I say, the dream of my mother keeps me going. Education is what lifts us out of poverty. And I think I take that with me. But I find that people gravitate. I know many people are checked out and some are alienated, some are turned off. But overall, I find that people are good and they just want an opportunity and a better place for their children. It's kind of the same things we learned from our grandparents and our parents. They worked hard to give us. They sacrificed for us. And I think it's important for us to sacrifice for our children and our grandchildren if we're so lucky to have them. So it keeps us going, that this is a place of opportunity. It's a beautiful country. Yes, we have flaws. Yes, we've had bad chapters in our history. But, the 250th year celebration of America, I think we have so much to be thankful for and celebrate. And we celebrated 4th of July, and we're going to celebrate all this year as well. So it's, what keeps me going is really the dreams of my mother and a faith in this country that it's a wonderful place. And as they say, freedom, you only keep it as long as the next generation is willing to fight for it.
I agree. Gloria, I want to thank you for coming on to Latino Free Minds. I appreciate you putting up a fight, going up and down the state for Republicans. I know you're not just doing it for Republicans. I know you're doing it for all Californians. So as somebody that is a Republican that wants to see somebody fight for things like parental rights and really all rights, it almost seems like, that are under attack from Democrats right now. And it's not that I want the state to turn Republican. I want to bring some balance back. So I thank you for doing that. I noticed a question in the comments about which counties you think you'll need to flip from the last time to win. And if you will be visiting places that they think are important, like Imperial, San Diego, San Luis Obispo, and Ventura. But I know that you're going to areas like that. So how do you get those folks to know when you're coming to town so they can come out and support?
Well, the best way they can support right now is go to my website, GloriaJRomero.com, GloriaJRomero.com, and I asked for a contribution. I made it through the runoff, through the primary into the runoff, really on pennies. And I think it was the hard work, old-fashioned shoe leather. I got in my car and I drove up and down the state of California, and because I believe you reach out to every voter, but it takes money even to fill the gas tank, a hotel room when you got to stay overnight, advertising, etc. So I ask people, if you want to make a change, I ask for you to spare some change and make the contribution that you can and get others to come. And come to the fundraiser on Monday night, because we should be able to make America laugh again. And so, come to that, tell people about it. I think it'll be great fun. We'll have other events. We try to do everything that we can on social media, on which we are. We're on X, Facebook, Instagram. Also with Steve Hilton, he'll put out when the Golden Ticket is doing things. It usually just has his name, but typically whenever he puts something out for a town hall, usually I will go with him. So we do that. We go everywhere that we can. As far as counties, it's basically, leave no county behind, leave none there. But we've got a time period. It's now about 100 days. Think about it, till the runoff. And I believe this election is the biggest, most important election. It's a massive change election. And if we don't make a leadership change, an executive change, this November, you are going to find a whole lot more families going to the U-Haul, renting the trucks and saying, adios, goodbye, ya basta, I've had it, and heading out of California. We're seeing it from executives, from businesses shutting down, families, and especially young people who are just saying, I can't afford it. I can't stay here anymore. I can't build my dream. And they can go across the border to Nevada or Arizona, where, by the way, gas is like $2 cheaper per gallon than it is in California. And so we're losing our state. So this election is critical. So I ask people, go to the website, contact us. We ask for contributions. They say money is the mother's milk of politics. And so it's important for us to get that out. But if you can put together, if anybody's interested, saying, hey, we'd like you to come and meet with us and gather the families, a comadre network, gather the kids, everybody, I'd be happy to. But we've got to make it so that we can get people there, reach out. I'm visiting churches. I'm going through, I did, during the primary, I ran ads. I'm probably the only candidate who ran, I think we ran 400 Spanish language ads. Because I believe in the power of the Latino vote. I'm not giving up on the community, of which I'm very proud to be a Mexican-American woman. And so we ran about 400 ads throughout the Central Valley, all the way to Imperial in San Diego. I was in San Diego County just a couple of days ago as well, by the way. So it's going everywhere. We've got to selectively choose, though, as well. I probably can't get to everywhere. But I'm looking for where we can especially motivate the base. This is a turnout election. People have to believe in the candidate to turn out. And I'm asking people to believe, because if we don't believe, we've given up. And when we don't vote, it's just the other side that's winning. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the other side, it's kind of pretty scary right now as far as the perpetuation of policies that are going to further just hurt California and Latino families especially. So we ask you to invite us, to donate. We're going to go to as much. The Central Valley is very important to me. And so I've been in the Central Valley several times, going back again in the next, this weekend and a little bit later in the month. And then the days are going by really fast. So it keeps us, but we've got family and friends, and I got my little rescue dog with me. So you know what? I feel blessed to be able to just, to be able to talk to people and to have been one of the two candidates to go out of the primary into the runoff. I am thankful for the confidence, the trust, the many blessings I've been given along the way, and I will never violate that or take it for granted. So I'm thankful for all the opportunities that have been given, and I will work hard to basically earn and show you that I'm giving you what you expect and nothing less.
Well, we're also grateful, Gloria, that you shared part of your afternoon with us here at Latino Free Minds. Just to remind folks, come out, have a good laugh here in Fresno. The event is happening in Clovis, actually. If you want to get tickets to go see Paul Rodriguez, Come have a laugh. It's Gloria Romero for lieutenantgovernor.com. It's Gloria Romero, the number 4 ltgov.com. Get your tickets. Like I said, come have a laugh and have a good time and leave inspired to go vote for Gloria Romero, Steve Hilton, and everybody on the Republican side. Thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate you. And Gloria, thank you again. God bless you. God bless your campaign. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.